So, hello, class number 5. We are working on Physical Geography 21. You'll see it there pretty clearly. We're looking into what we call Oceania, or Oceania, which is this area right here on our map. It includes Australia, the continent, and like I said, this section will be different than any other section because we're including both a continent and also some surrounding nations that are not a part of that continent. Every other continent, there's a main body and then there's maybe a couple of islands around it. So like if you look at Africa, Africa's got Madagascar right here. The whole continent of North America, it's got some islands right here, but there's a large landmass and then also some islands above in Canada. But over here, it's different because there's an island that is a continent and now you've got some surrounding islands. So we're gonna group those all together, but just so that you know, this area is a little bit different and unique because it is comprised of a continent that's an island and then also some surrounding islands. So we're gonna call it's Australia and the surrounding islands. It's known as Oceania. I think that's how you pronounce it, Oceania. So that's kind of how it's unique. It's unique because it's an island, it's a continent, and it has a lot of island nations around it. So it's a little bit different, but let's get into it. Hey, excuse me, I have something in my eye. I want to make sure I get all the information to y'all that you need. All right, so Oceania, at its core, comprised of hundreds of islands and island chains rising out of the waters of the South Pacific. Even its largest landmass, Australia, is decidedly an island, earning the moniker the island continent. It's the only one like it. Even though the U.S. is, or not the U.S., the world is comprised of 70% water. If you look at it, the vast majority is water. Let's see here. Although all land masses from huge continents like Asia to tiny atolls like Wake Island are merely areas where the land's elevation breaks the surface of the water, proper islands are a more illustrative example of this. Though many larger islands are composed of more than just a single mountain or mountain chain, most are still distinctively recognizable as islands, and oceanic territory is no exception. To chart the terrain of Oceania, then, is to chart the terrain of an array of islands strewn throughout the vast distances of ocean. Except for Australia, most of the islands are built entirely on the slopes of mountain valleys, which breed a familiar pattern of high elevations in the interior and gradual slopes down the exterior coastlines. So a lot of them end up being volcanoes, or let me find my place. But there is probably no place on Earth quite as naturally beautiful as Oceania. After all, it is not large monuments or impressive skyscrapers that draw tourists to the region, but rather the sun-drenched beaches of Tahiti, the glistening harbor of Sydney, and the staggering mountains of New Zealand. Perform a Google search for Oceania and you're in for a breathtaking photo tour of paradise. Oceania is every city dweller's dream retirement destination, where one can sit contentedly and watch the surf while sipping a fruit drink as waves lap the sand and palm trees sway gently in the breeze. So again, let's take a look at this area again, Oceania. So we looked at Asia and we saw quite a few islands that come off the southeast of Asia. And we talked about the fact that those were also ways that the Lord used to inhibit the expansion of these Asian empires. But at the same time, these islands also offered a bridge from Asia to Australia. Albeit not a very easy one, but at the same time, people were able to make boats and to cross those areas. Thus you have an inhabited Australia, and then all the way now down to the bottom here, let's see, let me point it right there is New Zealand. And if you know anything about New Zealand, it is a beautiful country. But That's one of the purposes of why those island chains are there, is to be able to connect them. Because if you look at every other area, Asia, Europe, and Africa, those are all connected. You can get to them by land. If you look at the United States, or I'm sorry, not the United States, but North and South America, you can get to them by land, by the little connection in Panama, right up, where is it? Right, let me go back. Right there, where it connects North America and South America. But Australia, again, is the island nation, so it's not actually physically connected, but it is connected through this network of islands to Asia. So that's part of the reason why God put it like that. Let's go on to the next page. Okay, it says, when Peter Jackson's inaugural installment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy debuted in late 2001, it did more than just bring an epic adventure to cinematic life. Part of the reason the films were lauded so highly is for the stunning visuals and cinematography. Jackson introduced Western audiences to the grandeur of New Zealand, which, with its dazzling mountains and lush green plains, did a fine job for standing in for Middle-earth. If you've ever watched those movies, you'll know just how beautiful the landscape of New Zealand is. I would love to go there. Moviegoers understood why the actors and several thousand extras were flown halfway around the world, because the geography of New Zealand seems so natural and unspoiled. Much of Oceania actually mirrors majestic New Zealand, even the large deserts of Australia. In a region with so comparatively little land area, Oceania offers all the topographic regions anyone could desire. So that even though it's not the largest, it has everything. Let me see. This is a fairly basic chapter. We looked at some of the reason why the Lord kind of put it off by itself, and also at the same time, actually more the bridge between Asia and Australia. Let's see. But I'm actually going to have you read the rest of this chapter. The rest of the questions in the chapter are going to be straight from the reading, except for, actually, you know what, there's one more that I need to give you. Actually, I'm going to have you look it up. Look up on Google how many islands are in Oceania. It's impressive. I'll just say that. So go ahead and read the rest of this chapter. Look up how many islands are in Oceania. And if you have any questions about them, they're pretty basic questions. If you have any questions about them, let me know. And you can call. I apologize for, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there were some confusing questions. I think it was for the questions for last week, not for this week. There were a couple of confusion questions, and my apologies for that. There were a couple of questions that were not clear and a little bit repetitive, but didn't mean to do that, but it happened anyway, so my apologies on that aspect. But for this one, these are pretty straightforward, cut and dry questions. So if you have any questions, let me know, and have a good week.